Drink waters out of thine own cistern, and running waters out of thine own well. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad, and rivers of waters in the streets. Let them be only thine own, and not strangers with thee. Let thy fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Let her be as the loving hind, and pleasant roe. Let her breasts satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished always with her love. And why wilt thou, my son, be ravished with a strange woman, and embrace the bosom of a stranger? For the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he pondereth all his goings. His own iniquities shall take the wicked himself, and he shall be holden with the cords of his sins. He shall die without instruction, and in the greatness of his folly he shall go astray. Verse 15 likens a man's wife to his most precious material possession, a spring of cold, clear water. See Song of Solomon, chapter 4, verse 12, Isaiah chapter 48, verse 1. This emphasizes the truth that a water bird is the bird referred to in John chapter 3, verse 5, and it's not to be connected with the rite of baptism by any stretch of the imagination. The first physical life on earth came from water, Genesis chapter 1, verse 20, and the figure holds thereafter. See 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7, vessel. At verse 16, all the commentators abandon the authorized version 1611 text. The Septuagint translates, "Let not thy fountain," etc., and Bullinger adopts this reading as correct. The revised version 1881 to 1884 puts a question on the end of verse 16. Should thy fountains be dispersed abroad? The origin of the Septuagint reading is of course Origen, 184 to 254, who with Clement of Alexandria inserted the negative not into the verse to help God make sense out of his book. See chapter 3, verse 12, and the comments there. The reasoning is that verse 17 must mean that a man is not to allow others to use his wife. However, the context thus far is a man sticking to his own wife and not using someone else's. Note verses 3, 11, 20 and 21. Origen's reading actually is, "Let not thy waters flow beyond thy fountain." But this is rather ridiculous, for the fountain is not singular, it's a plural. "Let thy fountains," verse 16. The woman was likened to a well, verse 15, not a fountain. The singular "thy fountain" does not occur until verse 18. Therefore, the fountains of verse 16 are the waters of the same text are not a reference to the wife. They are a reference to the children which come from the wife. There are two admonitions in the passage. Therefore, and Origen was only able to pick up one of them. First, use your own wife and don't allow another man to use her. Verse 15 and 17. Second, have a quiver full of arrows. Psalm chapter 127, verse 4. And let your offspring fill the street and the world with children that are your own children, and not the children of another man. Verse 16 and 17. Note, let them, the children, be only thine own. Verses 18 and 19 are self-explanatory and match Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4, and much of the Song of Solomon. The ascetic Gnostic scribe who penned the mythological Septuagint around 350 Anno Domini was rather shocked at the cross imagery of "let her breast satisfy thee at all times." So he was careful to censor the passage so that God could have a respectable book which would pass the Committee on Culture. Origen, or someone as far off base as Origen, has mistranslated, "may see thine own lead thee and to be with thee always, which is sheer arbitrary conjecture based on the deluded imagination of the writer. Many Bible translations can't stand the true text and hard preaching, so called. They are too modesty, and they leave this breast out and put something like love there or whatever. And why wilt thou, my son, be ravished with a strange woman? Verse 20. The word ravish, saga, means to be obsessed or to be delirious over the thought of something. Modern motion pictures advancement have enabled the male population of the world to be ravished without seeing anything but a flickering light on a screen. Where ravish becomes ravenous, there is contact. Embrace the bosom of a stranger. But many a man is ravished, Matthew chapter 5 verse 28, without embracing anything. David experiences this, as does Amnon, 2 Samuel chapter 13. For the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord. Verse 21. Contrary to the contemporary and perennial superstition that God is the thinkhood of the unknown whatness, so called, etc., some all-pervading neuter nothing that permeates nature. God's revelation of himself, given by him in his own book, makes it clear that he knows all about man, including the silly definitions which man invents to clear himself of personal accountability to God. 2 Chronicles chapter 16 verse 9, Job chapter 34 verse 21, Proverbs chapter 15 verse 3, and Psalm chapter 139 verse 16 teach that the Creator beholds all of his works, observes their natures, responses, actions, conduct, and ways, and sees clearly through the natures, motives, thoughts, intents, desires, and plans of the human heart. Hebrews chapter 4 verses 12 to 13. Jesus says there is nothing hid which shall not be manifested, neither was anything kept secret, but that it should come abroad. Mark chapter 4 verse 21. Neither blue lights, thick smoke, loud music, philosophical sophistry, psychological hocus pocus, sealed bedrooms, speakeasies, closets, nor bomb shelters are able to hide man from his maker. Man's ways are before the eyes of the Lord. See Jeremiah chapter 16 verse 17 and Job chapter 34 verse 21. His own iniquities shall take the wicked himself. He shall die without instruction. Verses 22 and 23. Sin is its own punishment many times. As the Japanese say, man takes drink, drink takes drink, and drink takes man. Any man can break a thread wrapped once around his fingers, but the same thread wrapped around 100 times is something else. Sin is of such a nature that it's insatiable. It demands more and more of its practitioners until it controls its practitioner. This is exactly what has happened everywhere. What comes regards the matter of sex? What we have today is nations that have exploited sex for 50 years, paraded the marriage bed on the movie screen, commercialized nudes and flooded its newsstands with pornographic literature under the pitiful excuse of freedom of the press and internet, of course. Now the educators themselves have largely become sex obsessional neurotics and imagine that the cure for the sex mess, one divorce out of 3 marriages, if it's even enough nowadays anymore, is more emphasis on sex. But the brand of sex, miniskirts, belly dancings, fantasies, homosexual movies, different kind of transsexual matters, sexual liberation, and the motions of intercourse set to music, observe any popular rock and roll singer, doesn't come under the heading of sane, sensible marriage relationships. It comes under the heading of Proverbs chapter 5. What those so-called educators hope to straighten out by focusing the minds of teenagers on their bodies and their bodily functions, and even claiming that our boys and our girls are what they are, must be done while the same teenager is watching lesbians and homosexuals and fornicators perform in living color. Sin only demands more. It's insatiable. Every chronic alcoholic began with a sip. Every other man in the ward for lung cancer began with one cigarette. Every man like Errol Flynn and every woman like Marilyn Monroe, two of the most monumental failures who ever lived, began with one or two dirty pictures and one or two dirty stories. But sin doesn't stop with one or two dirty stories or pictures. It demands a response from the flesh, and this response becomes progressive, harder to obtain, the more the practitioners practices, and we become more for Errol Lynn, Marilyn Monroe, etc. Situation now is even much more, can we say, liberated. Hence it can go like this. First beer, second spiked coke, third brandy, fourth mixed drinks, fifth straight bourbon, sixth hair lotion, aftershave lotion, pot, airplane, glue, torpedo juice, rifle bore, cleaner, etc. Furthermore, first dirty joke, second dirty story, third dirty story illustrated, fourth dirty photographs, fifth masturbation, sixth excessive masturbation, 7 illicit relations, 8 constant fornication, 9 sex deviation, 10 sex perversion, 11 sadism, masochism, whipping, murder, sex murder. You see the Bible is correct, Proverbs 5 verse 22, and the teachers and educators are not only wrong, but gullible fools, naive and superstitious. The wages of sin is death, Romans 6 verse 23, and there is no doubt whatsoever about the truth of the statement, whosoever committed sin is the servant of sin, John 8 verse 34. Jesus was right, Solomon was right, Bertrand Russell and John Devoe were not only wrong, they were extremely inexperienced or extremely dishonest. He shall be holden with the cords of his sins. Verse 22. This is the handwriting on the wall for any man reading this who is credulous enough to believe what is taught in a modern university curriculum. One day you will be tired of your shackles and you will say, I'm tired of this mess. I'm going to quit it. I'm going to clean up and live right. And then you will learn the truth of the text the hard way. You will strain your muscles till every fiber of your being is inflamed. You will sweat and groan till your carcass is soaked with perspiration. Your muscles will swell and distend and accomplish nothing. You will call for your friends and whatever God they recommended to you in college or wherever educational place to replace the God of the Bible, and they will come and pound with hammers and chisels on your chains till your eyes bulge and your head splits with pain, and you will not be able to get out. You will lie there, riding in the cords of iniquity, which you braided yourself, and the best you will be able to do is adopt some oriental religion that will justify your position and pretend that you are not really in the case you are in. Sin is privation. Sin is a delusion. Sin is negation, they might say. We make our heaven or hell on earth. Hell is in your mind, etc. Those are the claims of the world. And while the world flocks to your prostrate body to gain encouragement to go on sinning, and while cameras take your picture and you go down in history as a great emancipator from the tyrannies of the mind, God Almighty will sound your funeral dirge, and your descent into the bottomless pit will be accompanied by the rattle of a chain. His own iniquity shall take the wicked himself, verse 22. He shall die without instruction, verse 23. So Saul dies in the battlefields of Mount Gilboa after rejecting the wisdom of Samuel. So dies Herod after rejecting the wisdom of John the Baptist, Mark chapter 6, verse 20. So dies Judas after preaching the Bible and conducting healing revivals, Matthew chapter 10, verse 1 to 4, for 3.5 years. So died every educator and philosopher and psychologist on the face of this earth who accepted the words of Buddha, Einstein, Plato, Aristotle, Dewey, Russell, Nietzsche, Spinoza, Descartes, Laplace, Emerson, Dickens, Hume, Hobbes, Channing, Mao Zedong, Jung, Pavlov, Freud, and Marx, and rejected the words of truth penned by Solomon, Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verses 13 to 14. The book of Proverbs has run 5 chapters, and with 26 to go, the book has already identified itself in unmistakable terminology. This book is going to be a book which is going to point out in detail the ruin to which every lost man staggers who rejects the Bible. And further, it's going to hold up before the eyes of the reader constantly the contrast between the wise son who listens to his father and the bastard of Hebrews chapter 12 verses 8 to 9 and John chapter 8 verse 44, who holds to the traditions of men and the rudiments of the world, where they stand in contrast to the God-breathed words of divine authority. Amen.